Brock Purdy and the Niners are loading up and studying up to play the Seahawks, and guess what? So are we. How does he do against Mike Macdonald's defense? Where does he succeed? Where does he struggle? We're going to break it all down on today's Gold Standard Podcast. What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard Podcast, part of the Pro Football Insiders. I'm Rob Stats Guerrero, alongside Johnny Dell from the Johnny Dell Football Academy. Welcome to the demonetization station, as we like to call it, the show where we dive into the film to break down something happening with the 49ers, and then the NFL comes and takes all our money shortly thereafter. Johnny, how are you on the first real football week of the show?
Man, I'm excited. I'm excited for that we have real football tonight. Real football. We get to see Micah Parsons' Cowboys go against the defending Super Bowl champs, which we hate both these teams, so that's great. We get to watch one of them lose. But we have 49ers coming up this Sunday in Seattle. Let's go. 49ers. It was funny. I was going to NFL Pro and kind of previewing the matchup and stuff with a lot of their insights. If you look, I don't know if you've gone there and looked at the injury report comparison. The 49ers is like this long and Seattle's about this long. It is just a massive list. Now, most of the players listed on the injury report for the 49ers were full participants in practice, but it was just sobering to see the list compared to each other. I mean, the 49ers list was at least 3 times longer than Seattle's. I think they had 5 or 6 guys, and we had to have 15 to 20 players on the injury. I mean, when you're talking about a 53-man roster and you have like 20 of those 53 on the injury report, that's kind of crazy. But we get real football. I mean, we've been waiting pretty much since last November for this moment.
Right.
Because it was like the 49ers season was over shortly after that Seattle game. Like, it felt like they went through a 3-game stretch there where you're going, they have to win this game or their season's over. They really have to win this game or their season's over. And seeing, like, once that kind of death knell happened, then we went, okay, it's all about 2025 and the next year. And so this is the moment we've been waiting for since still part of the games left last season. So it's finally here, and I'm excited for it.
Oh, everybody is excited for it. Arjun says, finally, game week. Greetings from the Netherlands. Thank you, Arjun, YouTube channel member. Shout out to all our YouTube channel members. We're going to get to the Brock Purdy film breakdown in just 1 minute, but something happened last night that happened after my show with Levin, so I didn't get to address it live. I did a video on it, but it wasn't live. Jauan Jennings and the 49ers got a little business done. And Johnny, I think this is the best thing for both sides. They'd agree to a revised contract for 2025. Jennings can earn an additional $3 million if he plays well. I don't know what the incentives are, but they're in there. And if he doesn't, Niners don't have to pay him anymore. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, and, well, I'm not sure Jauan Jennings is as happy as he hoped. I think he was looking for a bigger long-term deal for his real big payday. The 49ers were clearly not going to give him that. So he said, all right, if I play like I did last year, you need to reward me like I played like I did last year. And so they worked out an incentive deal for at least to get him on the field and said, okay, you can go and you can prove to the league that you are worth this. And we maybe can work out a long-term deal. This will give us the season to kind of play business on that and see how things go. I think they want to see how their young guys play. They want to see how Ricky Pearsall plays. They want to see what does Brandon Ayuk look like as he comes back. They want to see what Jordan Watkins is going to bring to the table. So they want to see Jacob Cowing actually get on the field this year and not have a hamstring pull. So I think they want to do all that before they really pull the trigger on, are we going to invest in Jauan until he's 32, 33 years old? And so this works out. It does work out well for both sides. I don't think either one got what they wanted, which tends to be what happens when two sides are dug in. But they got enough to where Jauan is here for week 1, and that's really what matters.
And Adam Schefter did report that Jennings turned down a multi-year deal from the 49ers, but we have no idea what those numbers or terms look like. I think it's smart for both sides this is the end of the Jauan Jennings journey, okay? This is the last year. It's run its course. He's never been a free agent before. He wants to hit the open market. 49ers have a lot of young receivers that they have drafted and invested in. So it's it. It's great. We'll have one more year. The business, the dark cloud or whatever that's hanging over this team is over with right now. So that is good news. They got all their ducks completely in a row, finally, before week 1. I was happy about that. They're the healthiest they've been all preseason. There were only 3 players that didn't participate in practice yesterday, and one of those 3 was Trent Williams, who was resting. So that is a very good thing. So if you had told me 2 weeks ago this is where we would be days before the Seahawks game, I wouldn't have believed you, but I'm sure as hell glad we're here.
Absolutely. This contract with Jauan reminds me of Dre Greenlaw's extension. When they had D Winters on board, you felt like it was coming, that they had D Winters there to take over for Dre Greenlaw, because they weren't going to be able to pay both Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw big contracts. It was kind of, let's see if it could happen. Kyle said he knew it was coming. He just kind of was hoping that somehow Dre would just say, well, I guess I could take $5 million less per year and stay with the team. It wasn't really a viable lane for either party to be in, and so this is what that feels like. It feels like this is, they have a replacement for Jauan Jennings on the roster already, that it's going to be one of these young guys, and they're letting this play out, but they need him now, and they need him to play well, and he's going to go try and prove to the league that he isn't just a one-year wonder, that he can play more than 70% of the snaps, that he can repeat a nearly 1,000-yard year and go get paid $20 million a year. If Jauan balls out and does that, I say thank you for your service. I am so happy for you that you went and made a big-time paycheck, because you deserved it. So that's how I feel with it. No hard feelings in any way, and hope he really balls out so he can go get a big contract and help the team this year.
I don't know a single Niner fan that disagrees with that, quite frankly, and we'll see how it turns out. He'll be on the field Sunday against Seattle. I don't know how many snaps he'll get, but I think that it's good that he'll be on the field. Seems to be running around pretty good out there. So just another check mark by the 49ers for this offseason. All right, we're going to get to the film breakdown in a second, but before we do, football is here, Johnny. And I don't know about you, but one thing I like to do when the first game comes around, I like to celebrate by making some picks. And you can do that with Sleeper. I highly recommend you do. You can see how easy it is. I've got the app pulled up on the screen right now. Dallas and Philly is right there. You click on it and all the options come right up for you. Some of them are interesting, like this George Pickens, receiving yards, 58.5. He could get more than that on one catch. He is such a deep threat. I could see Dak saying, you know what? This is my new toy. Let's let everybody forget about Micah Parsons. I want to throw the ball down the field and hit George Pickens. So I think I'm going to go higher than 58.5 receiving yards. I feel pretty good about that. I know Cowboys aren't my team, but I'm going to trust my gut on this one. And then this is a complete homer pick by me. Dallas Goedert, higher than 37.5 receiving yards. Why? Because he's on my fantasy team. That's why I'm doing it. Don't care. I'm going with Dallas Goedert. All you got to do is pick 2 players from different teams, pick higher or lower on these stats, like touchdowns, passing yards. They have more stats in Sleeper than anybody else, quite frankly. You get your picks right, and you can win big. Use our promo code, though, GSP. You'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Make sure you check out Sleeper today. All right, Johnny, let's get into the Brock Purdy breakdown. Mike Macdonald's defense. What are we looking at here? Do I expect good things, or do I expect, the disaster that was Christmas against the Ravens?
Well, if I can get this to actually share the right screen here, because it's not showing. Why are things not working correctly? Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry, it has been a day over here on my side. The first thing we have to really understand here is everything with the 49ers offense and the way that Mike Macdonald's defense is geared. is you have to establish the run against them, and you have to establish it well. If you look at the biggest difference between their first meeting and the second meeting was the 49ers ran for 228 yards in the first meeting, and they ran for 131 in the second meeting. Now, that doesn't sound like you'd have a huge disparity. 131 yards, you should still be productive and win the game. But in the second meeting, Brock Purdy rushed 5 times for 40 yards. So he was a big part of their rushing attack. He was 33% almost of their rushing yards in the second meeting. In the first meeting, he ran 4 times for 19 yards. So that tells you how out of sync the production of the running backs had dropped down from that first meeting to the second meeting. So what happened during that time? Because you went from having Jordan Mason and Isaac Arendo and Patrick Taylor's your main bell cows in those games to then Christian McCaffrey and a little bit of Jordan Mason and Isaac Arendo in the second game meeting. So was it Christian McCaffrey? Well, there was 2 major injuries that happened between those 2 meetings. Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL, and George Kittle pulled a hamstring. And George Kittle was not out there, and that made a huge difference. So here's the first meeting. I got George Kittle circled. So we're going to run this wide zone, and this is with Jordan Mason. And what you're going to get is watch George Kittle come up and get on Julian Love here. And just watch this block. I put this on X this morning after I did this because I was like, oh, my goodness.
Oh, my God.
He pancakes him, takes him for a ride. So there's something I want us to point out here. So they have a defensive end over George Kittle. And Trent Williams and George Kittle are going to work this combo on it. This defensive tackle is doing what he's coached to do, which is come at a 45-degree angle, try and cut that running back off and force him inside. And that's going to happen. He's going to force him inside, but George Kittle is going to recognize this. He's not going to worry about this defensive end beating Trent Williams there, and he's going to go get Julian Love. And that's really what springs Jordan Mason here on this cutback, because he's going to get a huge lane. And this is dug out, and George Kittle pancakes him completely out of the play. So you get that out there. Julian Love isn't able to cut back in, and then Jordan Mason makes one guy miss when he's one-on-one with the safety, and we're off to the races, and we get an explosive run play. Okay, so that is meeting number 1, and we're going to see this from the end zone. You will just look at this hole. My goodness, and you got George Kittle digging this out. That's the only guy that can sift back across and take this on is the safety. And so this is just a gaping hole for Jordan Mason. Now, again, he does a great job, makes a guy miss, breaks a tackle, and then gets a ton of yards later. Great run by Jordan Mason. Great job by the offensive line. George Kittle did what he needed to do. Okay, here we come into the second meeting. We're going to run this same play. So this is a wide zone. We now, because George Kittle is injured, we have brought, this is Jalen Moore in as a tight end. So he's next to Trent Williams. And then you have Eric Saubert next to him. And so Jalen Moore and Trent Williams are trying to make the same block on the same technique. But watch how these two guys, because you have a tackle who's used to playing in Trent Williams' spot, how he plays this technique. Because the guy's going to do the same thing. He's going to try and break across at a 45-degree angle and cut the running back off. Jalen Moore says, okay, well, he's come my direction, so I have to pick him up. He's playing with tackle rules, not tight end rules in this zone blocking. So he needs to go and get the linebacker. Instead, that's what George Kittle did. He went and got the second level defender. Instead, he locks on this 5 technique. And now you got 2 guys here, and this guy's unblocked. And so Christian McCaffrey should have a lane up through here, but he's got an unblocked guy that's going to come into this hole and tackle him. Because that cutback lane, it looks very, very similar. I didn't include the end zone. I should have. That's what happens when you do this at 6 in the morning. But this cutback lane is going to end up being massive if you can get through this, because the safety's flowing. You get him against the flow. If this guy can't step up and you got Jalen Moore on him, this is going to flow even harder. And you're going to have a massive, I mean, we're talking maybe touchdown, another explosive just like Jordan Mason had. If Jalen Moore gets off this block and goes and makes that. That's the difference in these games. is that you had George Kittle out on the field and his blocking. Now you don't, and you're trying to plug and play that with a tackle who's not used to playing one spot over. Like this is a lot for they put a lot on Jalen Moore and asked him to do, and so there you have the difference between a 45-yard gain and a 2-yard gain. And notice that Seattle is playing with safeties deep. This is a corner that's come up. So they've got 2 safeties deep and another corner way off. You have all of your blockers in here. You have a way to account for every single defender on this in the box. You have a way to account for it. And you are getting 2 yards on a run when they are playing that far off and that light of a box against what you have. Man, you can't do that. It makes everything so hard. And why does it make it so hard? Because, again, here Seattle is in this 2-deep shell. Mike Macdonald plays more 2-deep shell than anybody in the league. We're going to run a little play-action fake here. This is later in the drive after that, or this is the next drive after that big Jordan Mason run. This is the next drive after. You're going to run a little play-action fake. You're running Brandon Ayuk on a drift route, so this is a common play-action play we have. You run the run fake, drift route, which is a 7-step in route. And the way that Seattle plays this a lot of times with their 2 shell, they'll play a matching. It's a matching quarters over here. So the outside corner is going to match the number 1 receiver. So he's going to match Ayuk on this drift. And you just kind of slow. You have Debo lose a couple steps, kind of bide his time, and then take off on a rail route down the sideline. And so you get this where you have play action because you've hit these big run plays. These guys suck up. You have the corners has to match. The safety is going to stay in a quarters, and you're going to get Debo running down the sideline. And that turns into a 76-yard touchdown. That's what setting up the run does, and then play action and attacking that 2-deep shell that Seattle has. Those things, one thing leads to another. When you have George Kittle on the front side of these plays, he's right here, and you start running this toss zone, okay, now you're getting huge flow by Seattle. I mean, this is 5 guys flowing hard out past the numbers. That's a really important key there. When you have 5 defenders running outside the numbers, that means you have only 6 covering from the numbers to the other sideline. That is a huge counterflow. And so that leaves these big cutback lanes because they are so worried about what this guy can do in the run blocking game that they know they have to go attack his side. And so you get, a gaping hole for Jordan Mason, gets like 18 yards. Now, that was a play that Jordan Mason hurt his shoulder. He sprained he had a separated shoulder from here. But, I mean, this is a gaping hole when you look at it from the end zone. Like, there's so much play side flow from Seattle that my goodness, this is attack. Like, they are so worried about Trent Williams and George Kittle on that side of what they can do in the run game that you're getting these massive cutback lanes.
And this is when Kyle is licking his chops, because not only did that play itself work, but he sees that flow. He sees all those guys trying to get over there and over pursuing, and that's when he's at his best, because he goes, yep, okay, they're over adjusting or they're overreacting. I know exactly where I'm going. I'm going to this play, and he's going to gash you with an explosive play very, very soon. As soon as he sees all that flow, he knows exactly when to go to the left hand, so to speak, and he'll gash you with a big pass.
Well, and when they have such high flow, and then you're able to cut back against in there and get up in the seam, then that and it gashes them. Then they start flowing less aggressively, and we'll see that near the end of the game. So you run that, and then here, this is like the 2 plays later, I think, running play action, and you hit Brandon Ayuk on a drift route. Okay, so it's that 7-step in route. Bam, there's a play action. You see all the influence on the underneath defenders. I'm going to run it back, and I'll pause it here. So you see all these guys attacking. They're coming in because there's so much play-sided run action attack that then, boom, you hit Brandon Ayuk, and you get chunk plays. I mean, these are chunk plays that you're getting. These aren't just grinded out. This looks like 49ers football. Run the little play action. There's everybody going. Brock's on time. He's throwing this with super anticipation out here because you got Dodson faked out, and you're getting these big chunk plays. So that's what it looks like when you have those guys on the field, and you're able to run the ball against this too high shell, and you're able to set things up. I mean, the offense was starting to really churn, and then you come back with that play action again. You're going to run Debo on a deep Dover route. I can't run it as deep as he actually goes. It's the same idea. They're running this too deep shell, Seattle is, and they're going to, like we saw earlier, they're going to match this in breaker. And now you take George Kittle and you're going to work him out here and you're going to run him down the sideline, just like you did with Debo Samuel. So here it goes. There's the little, oh, nope, I got the wrong note on here. All right.
False start.
That's the next play. My bad. So this is coming right after the half, and you're going to have George Kittle over here, and he's going to first help on the defensive end, and then he's going to go get the corner. Or actually, it's going to be the safety or the linebacker, I think. So you're going to run this. This was Jordan Mason's only run of the second half because he had his sprained AC joint. If you remember, he came in, he ran the ball this time. His shoulder hurt so bad running the ball on this play that he was out, and he was out for the rest of the game. And then Isaac Guerrero came in and production really dropped off. But you're going to see George Kittle gets the 2-for-1. He gets this block, and that's what allows Jordan Mason to get to the edge, and you get a 9-yard run. A 9-yard run on first down. There's George Kittle. First helps on the end to help get that, and then he goes and gets the second-level guy. This is the impact of George Kittle in the run game. He makes these blocks, and you're getting 8 yards on first down. And this is the play I was talking about. So you're going to have this big, deep Dover, and then you're going to have George Kittle leak out here. Again, you've done these things, a little play action there to Guerrero, and you hit George Kittle down the sideline, and he's going to go rumble and get you 10 more yards after contact. This is the impact of George Kittle in the game. So you're running, and then you have you're here on that hash. Okay, remember last time they had such high flow outside the numbers. Now this is near the end of the game. We're going to run this wide zone again. They're going to say, okay, settle down, guys. Don't flow so hard. And now what you have is they're going to check backside. They're going to check in here, and this gets sealed off by Brendel. Great job, Brendel. Let's give him his props when he does it.
There you go.
And you get a crease in there, and boom, there goes Isaac Guerrero. Because now you don't have that flow. They're not flowing as hard, and so it's their front side. And so you get it, and you ice the game. That's the difference. Those things don't just happen in a vacuum. They start getting set up throughout the game. And all of these things work that way.
Shout out to Gary Firking, who gives us a nice super chat. Thank you very much. Because he knows the NFL is going to demonetize this in about 15 minutes. Says YouTube NFL stingy meatheads. I'm not going to say anything to dispute that. I will say that. But thank you very much, Gary. We do appreciate it. That's what Kyle wants to do. He wants to set you up. He's going to attack you. And when you try to counter what he's doing by over-adjusting, by over-pursuing, he's going to go to the other hand. Once he's got you trying to play that game, I feel like that's when Kyle is at his best. He really can just mess with your head. We've seen it multiple times. But that is sort of, with George there, right? When everything goes according to plan. And this just it doesn't always happen that way in an NFL game. So I'll be interested to see, if there is a piece of sand in the machine. If George Kittle does have to miss a drive or two or something like that, how does Kyle respond? I hope it doesn't happen, but chances are it probably will at some point.
Yeah, and I think the side I look at with that as well is, when you have an all-world player like George Kittle, there really is no plan B when you lose him. Like, there's no, you can't say, well, next man up. Like, that's what a lot of times we say.
What do you mean? They got Luke Farrell, the ultimate blocking machine.
Well, now that's why you go out and you bring Luke Farrell in, is because the idea is he's going to not be as nearly as drop off in blocking from George Kittle to Luke Farrell as it is from George Kittle to Eric Saubert. So much so that you had to try and put Jalen Moore in at tight end. That's where I see this as really big. And there's a reason Eric Saubert's not on this team anymore. I mean, there was a reason they let him go, and that you have now Luke Farrell and Jake Tonjes that are there instead of Eric Saubert. So here again, you notice that Seattle's in a too high shell. You should be able to run against this. We are in a condensed formation. So you have an ability to account for every single defender in the box. It only looks like a heavy box because you have your receivers in close. Well, now those guys still can account for somebody to block. You have 2 high safeties. You should be able to run against this look. Well, again, you have Eric Saubert in here and you have Jalen Moore. These 2 guys get tied up on one guy. You should be able to get hat on a hat. In here, you end up with a player that is unaccounted for in the blocking because you got 2 guys tied up with one, and and they don't even do it well. Like, I mean, when we look at this and they go in motion and they're both trying to handle this guy, they clearly you got Jalen Moore stumbling, Eric Saubert trying to kick him out, and then the guy's still going to win and get inside. You should be able to run against 2 high safeties all day long, but this guy is blowing up the play. That's the guy that both of them were on. You should be able to do something there and get this up in here, and you should have McCaffrey one-on-one with a safety. You should. Kyle's going to look at that and say, there is no excuse for us to not be able to run the frickin' ball and get 30 yards of carry on these guys. Like, you should be able to do that. When you are facing that kind of a box and you have the ability to account for everybody, we're going to see it from the end zone, that you should be running the ball all day long on these guys. This is your box, 7 guys. You're in big personnel. You've brought in an extra tight end. And this is what the run lanes look like? I don't think so. Like, you're getting everything squeezed in here. When I see that, I go, I expect a quarterback to struggle in this game, because if you can't run against that look, passing the ball is going to be real hard. If they can sit back here with these 2 safeties and they can run a myriad of coverages out of these and they can do all the things they like to do, this is going to make it really hard. And then the other part is, when you have an Eric Saubert in here, he does not command attention like other players do, like a George Kittle does. So we're trying to run a play action and run a deep divot route here with Debo. Now, Debo stumbles on this, but normally Brock's going to let this ball fly. You have Eric Saubert going out to the flat. He gets 0 attention on this play. So Julian Love doesn't care anything about Eric Saubert. He is drifting right down the hash into where Brock Purdy wants to throw this ball. That's why he holds on to it and he doesn't let it go. Because he's looking, this is where he's trying to go with the ball. And he's going to see Julian Love sitting here that just has to come over, and he's got this as a pick. Eric Saubert has gotten 0 attention.
This is a really interesting play that you bring up, though, because Brock Purdy talked about this in year-end interviews. He talked about it with Albert Breer a lot, how he got it, that this was one of his biggest problems. He should throw it to Saubert. Saubert is wide ass open, to quote Bruce Arians, because, like you said, the Seahawks are like, yeah, we don't care if Eric Saubert beats us, but Debo's not going to. And Brock said it got in his head. Well, we don't have certain guys out there. I got to make a play. He was going for the big play to Debo, and he passed up Saubert, and he should have gone to Saubert. And I think that we're going to see, especially in week 1, Brock is not going to care about that. If Saubert's the guy that's open, if Luke Farrell's the guy that's open, he's going to get back to just hitting the open guy and trying to make a big play the next time. But this is a really good example of that, because you're right. Love is 10 yards away from him. There's nobody in a 5-yard radius around Eric Saubert.
Yeah, and Eric Saubert had 1 target this game. He had 1 target in this game. The first meeting against Seattle, I think George Kittle had 8 or 9 targets. So, and then you factor in that Ricky Pearsall, I think, had 2. And Brandon Ayuk was getting some big catches down the stretch in the game against Seattle, and he was a big part of. We covered it a couple months ago. Looking at Brock Purdy, they had that play. George Kittle had 2 touchdown catches in that first meeting, right? And one of them, you got Brandon Ayuk on a lookie route, and Brock looks the linebacker off because it's Brandon Ayuk over there, and he hits George Kittle on the other side. Like, when you are missing those 2 guys, and now they're not there, and your quarterback saying, I don't know if I trust these guys. Now these things are happening. He's rolling out and he's throwing it, and you get 3 yards on first down. Like, these are the differences that you're starting to see.
Before you continue,
I
just want to give a thank you to Lisa, who gave us another super chat. Says, you're saying there's plays that are there to be made, and it's not all Kyle's fault? Appalling. Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa is thick with the sarcasm.
I love it.
So here's another example of passing up a guy and forcing a ball to one of your guys. So we're going to have Eric Saubert on a basic route, and we have Christian McCaffrey on a choice out China. So he's going to run a out in route here. And, if this is George Kittle, they're going to Seattle's going to come with a 5-man pressure here. So they're going to run 5-man, and then they're just in man coverage on the back end of this. So, actually, he's on Debo, and this guy's on Eric Saubert, and they have a deep safety. So you're just in man coverage. Most of the time, Brock Purdy is going to, if he's got George Kittle on a basic route, which is a 10-yard in route, he's going to hit George Kittle. There's no guy in the middle of the field. Yeah, you're throwing that to George 10 times out of 10. Like, you're just going to streamline it. I got nobody in the middle of the field. George Kittle's right there. That's George Kittle. He's going to get it, and he may even get 30 yards. That's where you're going to go. But Brock says, I got Eric Saubert in there, and this is a little bit tight right there. He's looking there, and he's going to move immediately off to Christian McCaffrey, who he trusts to win in man coverage. And so he's going to work there, and he's going to force it in there, and a defensive tackle picks it off.
Scars.
These are the downstream effects. Now, Eric Saubert did a decent job of being physical, maybe a little OPI, but he got some separation. But Brock doesn't trust him to win. When he saw it a little bit tight, he said, "Yeah, you're not George. I'm going to Christian McCaffrey because I trust Christian McCaffrey." And so I move on, and I go and I force it to Christian McCaffrey, who is a little rusty, and there it makes the ball bounce, and it bounces the wrong direction, and a defensive tackle is having the time of his life because he's been waiting his whole life for this moment.
That was at the end of the game too, wasn't it? When they were trying to come back.
No, it was I think second quarter. I think it was early second quarter. It was a moment that we had a little bit of a lead. I think it was 7-3, and then it's just one of those plays that you take points off your own board and you put it on Seattle's board. And you can't do that.
And I thought it was interesting, too. There was a soundbite that Kyle has talked about and Brock talked about with Ricky Pearsall, where basically Pearsall last year was like, hey, I can beat this guy. I can get open. And Brock kind of had to tell him, like, it's not enough that you can get open. You have to get open on my time. When I'm looking at you, I need to see that you're open. Otherwise, I'm going to go off of you. And I think that play with Saubert might have been an example of that, where Saubert eventually does create some separation like you showed, but it wasn't in time for Brock. He had moved off him by that time, and then bad things ended up happening. So it's not just a matter of can you get open, it's can you get open at the right time. It's one of the reasons that Brandon Ayuk worked so well in this offense in 2023 is because that's his superpower, is getting open super quick.
Yeah, you look at the last moment that Brock is looking at this, what he's seeing is a Seattle defender working inside of Saubert on an in-breaking route. And so he's not going to trust that that's going to be open. That's why he's moving off of it. And Kurt Warner talks about this all the time. Like, he hates when he watches receivers who are so busy trying to beat their man that they're going to fake a guy outside and then break in. He's like, if the middle of the field is open, and that guy's playing with inside leverage, and you have an in-breaking route, I'm not throwing it to you. I'm moving it off of you because I don't believe that you're going to win. I can't hold on. I cannot just blindly hope that you're going to do that, especially if it's Eric Saubert. Like,
right.
If it's George Kittle or Jauan Jennings, you maybe say, they've proved it to me enough times. I saw it enough times on reps I didn't throw it to them that I'm going to do this. This is Eric Saubert. You have got to win inside, and you've got to win inside early. You don't do that, I'm going to move off, and it leads to big negative plays, game-changing plays like this. So it's a cascading effect. And then again, you see they're in two high safeties. We have enough to account for every man in this box, and you cannot run the ball. This is bad. Like, it's just bad football when you are playing against a light box and you are a running team and you can't run the ball. We're running a little inside zone here. So this is going to be Christian McCaffrey's going to read this from the A gap outward this way. So he's trying to read it between Brendel and Pooney. And look, Dominic Pooney had a great year last year. He was not perfect. So there's kind of this fan perception when you see things like this of like Dominic Puni was just, if anything went wrong, it wasn't on Dom. He's talked about that. Forster's talked about that there were things that started to creep up with Puni, and teams started to exploit that later down the year. Now, we had such glaring holes on the offensive line that some of the times we didn't notice it, but this is a play Puni's got to win inside and drive his man out because Brendel's going to help him. Now, Brendel also botches his play too. He's got to go get up on Ernest Jones earlier. But this play is meant to go between these two guys, and it's going to be read from inside out. That's the way this play works. And it should be there. You have the numbers. You should be getting up on Ernest Jones. You should be driving this defensive tackle out. Christian McCaffrey should be running like a banshee through that hole. I mean, you look at this hole because his job is on the third step to square to the hole and read inside out. And if you're Christian McCaffrey, what are you thinking right now? Oh, man, I'm going to knock some safeties lights out and run through him. That's what you're thinking. That's not what happens here. So he takes off and boom, Ernest Jones steps in because Brendel's a little late in getting up to him. And then this defensive tackle, Dominic Puni, gets sloppy on his technique. He needs to anchor lower, drive this man out. He starts pushing instead of driving, and the guy wins inside, and then you have this conflagration. And
it's crazy how different that picture looked. That first step from Christian McCaffrey, and then 2 steps later, it's a complete 1 second you're thinking it might be a touchdown. The next second, it's stuffed for basically nothing.
Yeah. Like, both of those guys cannot allow that to happen. You have got to get on your blocks better than that. You've got to be on understanding the film work of who you're going against better than that. That should be an explosive run. They're in 2 deep safeties. You have a way to account for everybody. There is nobody, like, this wasn't a play that was taken away because somebody that wasn't accounted for was able to come in and make the play. This was, you had everybody accounted for and you did not execute your assignments. Kyle's going to look at that and say, guys, what are we doing here? This is not 49ers football. They're in a 2 deep shell, and you're going to run this zone. And again, just like, I watch these and I go, there is zero excuse why this play is not a massive explosive run when you are going against a light box, because what we're trying to do here is Jake Brendel's got to scoop this one technique, and then they're going to come with double split flow action here. And they're trying to bring Ernest Jones back across. And Dominic Puni's got to go. They're trying to bring him into Dom. And so Dom's either got to undercut him, turn, and seal him off, or full steam, smash into him, and drive him out of the play. That's what's got to happen here. And I don't know if Dominic Puni gets confused. He stops and acts like he's trying to wall this off for a run that's coming back the other way. Everything front side says that this play is supposed to go right through here. I know there's split flow action, but I'm pretty sure that was just to bring Ernest Jones to Dominic Puni. And we don't even block Ernest Jones. And it's right. I mean, again, if you get through this line, we're talking explosive runs because these safeties are so far off the ball and you can't execute it.
Yeah, Puni looked like he was trying to set a pick in basketball, and then the linebacker just stopped and turned back to where the running back was, and Dominic Puni was just standing there watching.
Yeah, and now this is one of the just physical deficiencies that Jake Brendel has, and Chris Forster's talked about this. He's talked about that Jake has short arms, and so it's hard for him sometimes. And this is why they like length from their defensive tackles. Is you can look at this long arm by the defensive tackle. He's long arming Jake Brendel, and so Jake Brendel can't fully complete this scoop. So it's both of those guys. Again, Puni and Jake Brendel are both kind of at fault on this one. That you should be having an explosive run here. But it's just not there. And as we saw in the previous game, when you were getting these explosive runs, like this should be a freaking highway for Christian McCaffrey. And it's not, because you miss the block on this guy. You can't scoop this guy. They come over and they're able to squeeze that lane and close it before it really turns into a highway. And so you get a 2 and 3 yard gain. And that's the difference between these two games. When you look at what the running backs did in week 1 or the first meeting against Seattle, I think running backs were 6.9 or 7 yards per carry against Seattle. In their second matchup, it was 4.1 yards per carry from the running backs. That's the difference.
And it's funny. We look at this in terms of what can Brock Purdy do against Mike Macdonald, and it's like, yeah, that's part of it, but also you can't ignore the other side of the ball, the other part of the offense, which is running the ball, because if you can run the ball better, obviously it opens up things against the pass. I do agree with Access Granted, who says Pooney in his second year is going to be just that much better. I think he will be. Year in the system, year as a professional, full off season to get his body physically ready to go. I remember Chris Forster talking about, basically like halfway through his rookie year, Forster was like, so what are you doing on your days off to, get your body right? And Pooney was like, nothing. And Forster was like, nothing? What are you doing? It's like, you're not going to be 20 years old forever.
Yeah, and you started to see it because I think the second meeting was after the bye, if I remember right. So it was 5 weeks between the first game and the second game. So, either that, it was pretty much that Seattle game was when Dominic Pooney was usually in the last game of the year for him in college. So right. There is that rookie wall. Like, you are just not used to going another 6 weeks after that. Your body's just starting to give out. And so you could see it. And it was starting in the Seattle game that Dominic Pooney's performance was dropping off. And teams were starting to take advantage of him and the way he would move, and sometimes he wouldn't anchor fully through blocks. And so they'd say, okay, we can start taking advantage of this kid. And he did go through some rookie lumps in there. He still had a phenomenal year. He was a big part of that big 75-yard run that we saw with Garendo. He was the guy who got up on the second level. And so Dominic Pooney is most likely a future all-pro guard. But we can't also act like he was just perfect every game either. So Dominic Pooney had things that he could have done a lot better. Jake Brendel obviously could have done things better. Brock Purdy could have done things better. But when you lose a George Kittle, when you lose a Brandon Ayuk, I believe that Trent Williams did get hurt in that game, but he finished the game because he didn't play in the next game. After that game, he did not play again. So you have all those things cascading, and you got all this. It just comes into you have to play flawless, and you didn't. Like, when all those things happen, and you just have so many mistakes in the run game, I look at it and I go, you can't expect to go against Mike Macdonald's defense and let them sit in too high shell and not be able to run the ball on them. It's going to be so hard to throw the ball consistently, especially when you're missing a Brandon Ayuk. And Debo was coming back from being ill and hurt as well, because he had pneumonia. I think it was 2 weeks before that.
Yep.
So, it was just, I look at that game and I go, I'm not a believer, and I don't subscribe to that Mike Macdonald has Kyle's number in that. I look at that game and I go, there were so many plays left on the board.
No defense can stop everything, right? There are vulnerabilities with every defense. If you're going to play too high, the vulnerability is you might get run on a little bit. But if the other team can stop you in that look from running the ball, then it becomes very difficult, because that defense is, set up to slow down the pass game. So then if you can't run the ball on it, you can't pass the ball on it, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And that's sort of what happened with the offense too many times, unfortunately, last season. John G, thank you for the super chat, says, I'm all fired up for Sunday now. Keep up the good work, guys. I know I am. I cannot wait. I woke my son up for school this morning, and literally he sat up and said, Dad, there's football today. It was his first words to me today.
I love that. That is amazing.
We're in the same. He's going to beg me tonight. Can I stay up and watch the first couple drives? And I probably will let him. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, he's been waiting for so long for this moment. And tomorrow's Friday. They're not going to do anything in school anyways.
Let's be honest. And he's in our fantasy football league this year, and he's playing Levin in week 1. It's my 10-year-old son against Levin.
If he takes Levin down, you cannot let that go. Like that. Oh, yeah. That's something you got to hold on to for years.
I will let him on the instant reaction show just so he could gloat. That's my secret plan. So let's hope that that my son's picks will stomp Levin's picks. The only problem with that, Johnny, is much to my chagrin, Levin drafted Brock Purdy, and that's his starter. So I can't root too bad for Levin's demise.
I'm a little surprised he did that.
Yeah,
To be honest.
I was giving it to him during the draft. I was like, what are you doing? Leave our starting quarterback alone. And he took Brian Robinson.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Like super
Okay.
early too. I was like, dude, you're putting the kibosh on our season before it even begins. God. Benali asked a good question. Any worry about the forecast in Seattle? I haven't seen the forecast. Please tell me it's not going to rain. Please. I haven't even checked it. Shame on me. How could I not check the weather report before a Brock Purdy start? But I haven't seen anything. I'm trying to see.
It says 20% chance of rain.
Okay.
Upper 60s, lower 70s, partly cloudy.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
If something comes through, it might be a little bit of a misting that happens up there in Seattle all the time. I used to live up there. It happens all the time. I'm not really concerned. I know there's this kind of idea of rain football, Brock. I remember when I went back and watched the Browns game. There was a pick that everybody said it looked like Brock trying to throw a wet ball. It slipped out of his hands. It was to Jauan Jennings. When I looked at his mechanics on it, it was a bugaboo that I'd seen a couple times, and we talked about it on the show a couple months ago, where he'll close off his front hip a little bit. His toe doesn't point towards the target, and normally when he throws, he's a really torquey thrower, and so that front toe will open as he's throwing because he torques so hard with his hip. Well, that one didn't happen. His cleat locked into the ground a little bit, and that may have been because of the rain. He was wearing longer cleats, but it didn't open up. And when you do that, I'd reached out to Greg Pinelli. He's a quarterbacks coach. He coached Josh Allen and Marcus Mariota and a few other guys. I reached out to him, and I said, hey, I showed him the clip. I said, it looks like he just closes off his front hip a little bit. Is that going to – I said, my mind says it's going to make the ball go left. If you have if you're – toes pointed to the right, it makes the ball go left. And he explained the mechanics of it. He said, yeah, that it caused you to yank it because your elbow ends up moving faster than your shoulder, and so it causes the ball to whip, and it will shoot left and high. And that's exactly what happened. It was a pick. And so I wasn't a situation where I was going, okay, Brock can't handle a wet football. It was more a mechanics bugaboo that with the longer cleats became, as far as I'm assuming it was longer cleats, when his toe didn't open, that caused the pick more than anything. And I've seen a couple of throws like that with Brock where he'll keep his front hip closed, and it causes the ball to sail a little bit left and a little bit high. And so like you can watch that with Brock. If he misses a lot of times, it's going to be left and high. And that's a mechanics issue that he's been working through his time early in his career. I don't think it's a wet football issue.
Benali says, I actually don't think it's just a Purdy rain thing. The 49ers in general are a bad weather team. I mean, we have nightmares about last year. That Buffalo game, my goodness. I mean, that was the low point for me last year. When Josh Allen is out there just like a man among boys, throwing a pass, then just running around to get the lateral to go for a touchdown. That is the kind of goofy stuff we used to do to other teams. And last year it was done to us in just an absolute beatdown. That was the low point for me of like, this is not what 49er football has been in the last few years.
No, and losing Christian McCaffrey in that game, and then losing Jordan Mason right after him, and it was so bad, and the defense looked so bad, and they had been struggling. I mean, that game was it's just bad memories. Like, it was so bad. And then you deal with all the toxic fan stuff, and like, it was, I remember just shutting everything down after that game and wanting to turn the page and say, all right, what am I going to do for the next 9 months? It's not 49ers.
It's one thing when you watch that live and then you're like, I have to go back and break this down. Like, it's just going to get there. Look, this is a really fun job to have. I love it. It's my dream job. I wouldn't want to do anything else in the world, but there are some days where it's more fun than others. Let's just say that was one of the less fun days as a content creator.
Yeah, especially when you break down film and you got to spend like 6 hours with it the next day. I mean, there was a lot of weeks I was sitting there going, I don't even want to turn this film on. I just don't. I was like, I don't want to watch it because I have a hard time. Like, there's moments where watching something and seeing what goes wrong is kind of cathartic because it gives you an answer to the why, and it says, okay, I understand why things, and we can get better. When it's like the 8th week of seeing some of the same things is wrong, and it's not hopeful anymore. You say,
Right.
we are just a bad football team in these areas, and I'm sick of watching the same crap be wrong all the time. I'm sick of watching Nick Sorensen put our players in a bad position. I remember in that game, freaking Nick Sorensen. So the Bills, because it was snow, what they did, and they knew it was going to be snow all week, they said, we're going to run the stinking football. And so they spent all week without a tight end coming in. They would go out and they would bring in 3 wide receivers and bring in an extra tackle as a tight end because they knew that Nick Sorensen was going to go nickel every time. And then what they would do is they would sit there and run duo just over and over and over again at our nickel with 6 offensive linemen in the snow.
No chance to stop that.
I mean, watching Jair Brown, and I was frustrated with Jair Brown at that time, but watching him have to be in press man on a tackle. And then this guy is blowing him 8 yards off the ball on a run because you have asked your safety to take on, as an end man, a stinking tackle in the snow. And then they're running for 10 yards a carry on this. And because you won't go base against their 3 wide receivers in the snow. Like, you are in the freaking snow. You don't have to worry about them running deep in-breakers at 25 yards down the field. Your linebackers will be okay. Go put your big boys out there and strap your big boy pads on and go play real football. Instead, they're doing this. They can't stop the run. And then, there's these gaping holes in the defense for Josh Allen to just throw, and he's a great player, but I was so frustrated with Nick Sorensen. We're not in that game. If you can't tell, I was really frustrated.
Right, and clearly you're over it now. I can just tell.
Clearly.
No anger left lingering there at all. But, as John, one of our commenters said, it's a new year, man. It's a new year. Hopefully there's a lot of reason for optimism. Hopefully they will be better. We hope, we're not playing Buffalo this year too. That's a bonus. So let's be positive going into week 1. There's a lot that the 49ers can do against the Seahawks. This is a very, very winnable game. They are the favorites in this game. Let's start the year out right. Division game, revenge game on the Seahawks, revenge game on Sam Darnold. All the motivation in the world for the 49ers to come out strong in this one.
Normally we say week 1 can always lie. I feel like week 1 is going to tell us a lot about this team because I feel like Seattle is a very overachieving, mediocre team. Like, I remember I did a roster breakdown against theirs, like, back around OTAs on my channel, and I had some pushback from people that are like, you did Seattle dirty, because I like every position I ranked them around a B or a B minus or C plus. Like, they didn't have anything above a B, any position ranking. And they're like, how could you say that San Francisco's defensive line is better than Seattle's? I was like, well, because they don't have a superstar. When you have a Nick Bosa on your defensive line, that's going to skew the whole defensive line upward. Like, you cannot give the 49ers less than a B because they have Nick Bosa. When you have an A-plus player, like, you can't drop below a B. Like, you maybe if you have all Fs. But, like, if you say, okay, at least I have C-minus players on the team, you're going to be a B because you got Nick Bosa, who's an A-plus. Seattle, I'm like, I feel like all their defensive line players are a B, B-minus. And the same thing with their secondary. And same thing with everything but their offensive line. Their offensive line is like a D-minus. And I just feel like across the board, you look at everything and you go, they're a very mediocre team. Like, they don't have any major standouts. When you look at their linebacking core, you say, well, maybe, if you go down each one, I might take this guy over our guy or this guy over. But when you have a Fred Warner, that's going to skew it way towards the other way. Well, they don't have anybody like that. They don't have that on the defensive line. They don't have that in the secondary. They have a bunch of good players, nobody great. And so I think if you're going to, if you come out and you convincingly beat a mediocre team that can overachieve, it makes me say, okay, I think you can really be something this year. Like, if you just are neck and neck with an overachieving mediocre team, I go, you might be slightly better than mediocre. But this will tell me a lot about what this team's going to be this year.
I am counting the hours and the minutes until it actually happens. And let's get this year started right. Don't forget, we'll have the instant reaction show immediately after the game here live on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook and all those things. And, of course, you and I will be breaking down what happens next week. We'll have actual regular season game tape to break down finally. Because it was getting hard to come up with stuff towards the end of the offseason, but we don't have to live in that world anymore. So thank you, Johnny. As always, thanks, everybody, for watching. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you want even more film breakdown, Johnny's YouTube channel, Johnny Dale Football Academy, has everything you could possibly want. Trust me, you'll never get through it all. There's so much good stuff up there, but go and check that out as well. Johnny, you have an official score prediction for us before we go?
There's so many ways this game could go, but I'm going to say I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that this Robert Saleh defense is going to come back, and they're going to be fired up, and they're going to be doing what they need to do. I'm going to say it's going to be 24-13 49ers.
Ooh, sign me up for that. I would love that. Saleh is one of the things I'm most excited about this season, and we'll see if it comes true. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. We'll talk to you next week.